Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Tagline podcast. Sorry for keeping you waiting. It's one of those days. With me today, as always, I am, of course, your host, the Meerkat Monarch, and with me today, as always, is my very good friend...
Gene, the Angry Penguin, and today we will be talking about parodies and what makes them good and what makes them cringeworthy.
I have opinions on this, and not only that,
Why did you do?
Yeah, we'll make our recommendations as always, and talk about why we love those movies. So, yeah, you want to get started because this might be a sort of logic-driven episode. So there might be salt.
Is there some sort of irony to a logic-driven episode on parodies?
No, but I'm just, there's some stuff there. I'm just today has been shit because everything regarding my computer just broke. I'm kind of happy that we managed to do this podcast today, even. So yeah. It's a good thing we're debating or talking about a thing that I really love. So yeah.
Well, I mean, you got to look at this is my theory of parody, and we've had a lot of great parodies over the years. I mean, you got Spaceballs and you've got Blazing Saddles and, Airplane, Clue, and those type of films. These aren't just comedies. A parody isn't just a comedy. It's making fun of another genre. It's getting in there and either, in the cases of films like more recent films like Tucker and Dale versus Evil or Cabin in the Woods, you kind of deconstruct the genre and make fun of the tropes of the genre.
Yes.
But then you have the other side of the coin, the bad parody, which does nothing but fling shit against a wall to see what sticks. There you have your scary movies and
the yes, those movies. I can't even pronounce them. It's the thing is that I think there's a very important element that is missing from parody movies nowadays, in my opinion, and that is respect for the genre and love for the genre. I mean, if you look at a movie like... Let's take a real classic one and look at Blazing Saddles. That is a movie that is filled with love for the genre. You can still see... The thing is that with good parodies, you sort of embrace the bad tropes in a certain genre. The white hats and black hats from westerns, for instance, and not, and also the tropes from that time and that era. Wouldn't you say so?
Yeah, it more has to do with you're sitting there in Blazing Saddles is a comedy. It is a parody, but it's also a Western.
Yeah.
It works as a Western. It hits all the key points. It has, the bad guys coming into town to raid the place. It's got all the tropes, and works as a Western movie that is just making fun of Western movies.
Yes. Yeah, and
the same with the Spaceballs.
Yes.
I mean, Spaceballs is a little more direct riff. And I might catch some flack for this, but I don't think Spaceballs holds up as well as, say, Blazing Saddles does.
I can kind of see your point there, because it's I'm not necessarily disagreeing with you, but I love Spaceballs. But that might have something to do with my love of Star Wars and Star Trek and the various different genres of science fiction that you have out there. As you know, as the people who have listened to this before, Star Wars is not science fiction; it's space opera. So, but it's sort of Spaceballs embraces that, the silliness, the unnecessary complicated names for characters. There's unnecessary complicated names for planets or areas or whatever. It's there's a lot of things. There's, for instance, the medallion that Lone Star wears around his neck. It's very, very science fiction and fantasy trope. You know, the spoiler alert, the prince that was sort of left on a doorstep. It's very typical of that trope, and yeah, I love that about that movie. I love Spaceballs. That came out completely wrong. I just realized that me saying
No, it came out just right. It came out just right. We got that on audio now. That's the important thing. That's forever now.
Oh, the God!
When I'm when I'm comparing Spaceballs to Blazing Saddles,
yeah,
the point I'm trying to make is to a broader point. Spaceballs has a lot more current references in it to the time period the film was made.
Oh yeah,
it's got the Mr. Coffee joke. It's got the Perrier joke. It's got a bunch of jokes that you aren't going to get a decade later, or even 5 years later, maybe in some cases.
Yeah, and Mr. Radar.
Yeah.
And I get your point. Spaceballs is not necessarily a movie that that has aged well, and I agree with you, and I don't disagree with you at all. I'm just I just love that movie because it is a very cherished childhood memory. And Artemis is in chat saying Spaceballs hasn't aged well. Yes, I agree with you. I'm not disagreeing with anybody out there who doesn't think that Spaceballs is a better movie than Blazing Saddles, because yes, I agree. Blazing Saddles is the better of those two. So yeah, now it's on record.
I think there's two important things we need to remember. One, Jan loves Spaceballs. And the other thing is, when I was getting to the references and those period references to the time the film was made, that's where the Scary Movie franchise and the Not Another Teen Movie and all that garbage that followed that, that'll be maybe entertaining for people who were there. You know, you may see a lot of jokes that you recognize, but it's too much humor dedicated to the time in the film, any sort of lasting comedy. Whereas with something like Blazing Saddles and Spaceballs, to a lesser extent, a lot of the comedy just comes from good jokes and tropes of the genre. You know, you can go into Spaceballs and, you know, you may, if you get the little references, that's great, but you're still going to have a good time because it's making fun of the tropes of the genre itself, the space opera itself.
And my problem with Scary Movie is that it was kind of an unnecessary movie to make, since the Scream series did that job for it. It was Scream was a horror movie, but it still was a homage and a pastiche of the original horror movies that Wes Craven made, that all these sort of teen slashers from the early 80s. It's yes, I don't necessarily. I find the first two movies, the first two scary movies, to be funny, but it's a very good point that you made before, is that if you take away the jokes, is the story still believable? Could the story be placed in that sort of genre type movie? And I don't think that scary movie can.
No, Scary Movie can't exist outside of the movies it's making fun of. Whereas Scream, which, I mean, I guess you could technically classify it as a parody. I mean, a dark comedy, if nothing else, was just kind of a love letter to the genre and tried to play with the genre a bit. Same with Cabin in the Woods. And I think probably a better example of Cabin in the Woods is more a deconstruction of the genre, like taking all the tropes and pointing out how absurd they are and how you could technically make them happen, kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's kind of a weird beast. But like Tucker and Dale versus Evil, I don't know if you've seen that one.
No, I haven't. Not yet.
It's definitely worth seeing. It is basically about these two guys who are going to fix their cabin in the woods. At the same time, this group of college students is going out there. The two guys are just two rednecky guys.
Yeah.
And the beginning of the film's told from both their perspectives. And when it's just the college students, the rednecky guys are horror movie characters. And when it's the rednecky guys, it's just two buddies going out to work on their vacation home. You know, two kind of country guys. They're just going out to have a blast, do some fishing, hang out, and be buds.
Yeah.
And it just kind of takes it from there, you know.
Yeah. And by the way, Artemis is saying in chat, Tucker and Dale are is amazing. So, yeah, it's a movie I'm gonna add to my list now, because I watched 2 parody movies this weekend just to sort of get my juices flowing. And I think I think it's a parody movie that is often forgotten, or a parody movie series that is often forgotten because the star is sort of fallen. But Hot Shots 2. I watched Hot Shots 2 and Austin Powers' The Spy Who Shagged Me. And I still think that the love that Mike Myers has for spy movies is shown in the Austin Powers series. Maybe not so much in Golden Member, when it just becomes a hot mess of characters, basically.
References.
Yeah, references and characters. And the first 2 movies I think hold up, but the third one was, yeah, it's not as good. And I know that our boss and supreme overlord might take offense to a movie he was in not being as good. Dr. Evil.
Well, I mean, I'm not sitting around the conference table, so I have no fear of
I'm just I'm worried. I'm worried for I'm gonna check my seat for booby traps next Unsolicited Opinions podcast.
Should.
Yeah.
No, but it was what we were saying is a good parody. If you went in, took the script, stripped out all the jokes, and then just wrote in serious dialogue, would still be maybe a generic film from that genre, but would still work as a film in that genre.
Yes. So you can see that in for instance, Austin Powers, International Man of Mystery, and Austin Powers, The Spy Who Shagged Me. They work as spy, sort of very out there spy movies. Very much a 60s type of spy movie, really. And
yeah, but it's not if you just look at it, like I said, if you stripped out the jokes, is it any less ridiculous than some of the James Bond films?
No, exactly,
And
exactly.
from the same period, you know.
Yeah, and the
But
same with the hotshot movies. I mean, the idea of um a sort of, well, the hotshot movies are parodies of both Top Gun and the Rambo movies, most of them, most of the Rambo movies, and the idea that if you took the jokes out of Hot Shots 1, it would still work as a sort of a movie that was launched at the same time as Top Gun type of movie.
I mean, if you go back and watch Top Gun, it would have worked as Top Gun. Uh, Top Gun's one of those movies I don't find it to be a very good movie. I don't see the appeal.
Yeah.
Did I turn in my man card on that one?
No,
Uh,
no, not necessarily. I mean, I'm not going to judge you. That's for our comedy gods to do. But yeah, it doesn't necessarily, you know, it's yeah. It's sorry, I'm just uh, I'm chatting with chat as I'm talking to you as well. This live shit ain't easy.
well, you could have told me to fill time, sir. I could
Yes.
go back. Well, and look, you take a film like I said, like Blazing Saddles. I could go into my living room, I could sit down, and I could watch that right now and
Yeah.
laugh my tail off. I couldn't do that with the scary movie films. Maybe the first and second one. Well, definitely probably the first one. It had a little bit more coherent story, but basically, and the real problem with the scary movie is it's spoofing something that's almost already a parody. Scary movie is making fun of Scream,
Yeah.
which is already making fun of genre tropes in a serious fashion.
Yes.
So
Absolutely.
you add that second layer of silliness and you just kind of lose something. Not saying it's not an enjoyable film or anything like that. It's just not going to stand the test of time. 20 years from now, people will probably still pick up Scream. Not many people are going to pick up and watch the scary movies.
No, I think I might agree with that. It's not necessarily that I don't find them. I mean, I say this time again. I find the first two funny, but I don't necessarily think that they survive the scrutiny. It might be that a lot of the shit that the Wayans brothers did, and that is actually a movie that I quite like, and that's Don't Be a Menace, which is a really good parody movie in my opinion, because it actually makes fun of a lot of the tropes from, yeah, the Boys in the Hood, Menace to Society type of movies, and so yeah, I think that it's not necessarily because of the Wayans brothers, but it might be tainted by the fact that I think it's kind of overproduced. They kind of stretched it to as far as they could, and
Well,
it just snowballed as well because you got all these shitty fucking things right after it, and that might have tainted my view of those two first movies.
and if anybody's listening and hasn't seen Don't Be a Menace, it's worth seeing.
Yeah,
It's definitely, especially if you enjoyed the first couple scary movies, because the Wayans do a great job with it. But I think where its strength lies, and um, Scary Movie kind of falls down, is that Don't Be a Menace is a direct parody of serious films,
yes,
as Scary Movie is a parody of something that's almost already a parody, that's already taken the piss a little. And you can't sit there and you lose something when you're making fun of a comedy.
Yeah.
parody comedy.
Well,
It becomes
there are people disagreeing with us very ferociously in chat, and yes, I would agree with you that it's not necessarily a parody comedy, but it is a pastiche and a homage to horror movie. It's a self-aware horror movie, as Angela Knight says in chat. They are and the scary movies are more pop culture references. Yes, and that might be why I'm a little bit tired of them, because I think that pop culture movies, pop culture references are more. You can't build an entire movie based upon pop culture references. And I do realize I've said before I'm a fan of Mallrats, and that is a lot of pop culture references, but there's also a story around that. And I don't think that necessarily Scary Movie has a very good story behind it. But then again, I the numbers don't lie. The Scary Movie franchise was successful, so I may be wrong on that. I'm not gonna be adamant that people need to listen to me. Now
no,
listen
but
here,
here's the
Grandpa
other thing.
Jan is
Scary.
what?
You can take the scary but you can take the Scary Movie, the first two films, and you can see what happens when you have a maybe not the best parody idea, because it's already kind of taken in a little silly with something that's already silly.
Yeah.
Uh, and you give it to people who know what they're doing.
Yes.
And then you have the second film, the third and fourth films, where the people don't know what they're doing, and it's just there's no jokes anymore. It's just a series of the pop culture references.
Yeah,
Whereas
and
the first two Scary Movies had actual jokes, and they had setups, and they had payoffs. You know.
yeah, and the other thing that is very important to remember is things like it's when it comes to Artemis just made a good point that the reason why Don't Be a Menace was good was because it was making fun of the new blaxploitation coming out at the time. So yeah, and I totally agree with that. It's oh, a great tip from Angela Knight for a movie that I haven't seen at all. If you want to have a good horror spoof movie, you should watch Repossessed. You should also thank Angela Knight
Yes.
after you've seen it.
Yes. And I am glad she brought that up. That is a great movie. I saw it back in the day. Uh, it's just there's some of the jokes you aren't going to get if you're a little younger. Uh, but it is a great just that for that period of films, it hits all the right notes.
Yeah, and I think I also think that the reason I'm gonna go into the reason why I think today's parody movies suck. I think the reason why today's parody movie sucks is because they are not given the license to offend people. They're not given the license to drag people out of their comfort zone. Maybe I think that the movie that we keep returning back to, Blazing Saddles, it it took some balls to make a movie about a black guy being the sheriff of a town at that time. It was breaking a major Western trope at that time and making fun of it as well.
Well, and you have things where could you today make a film where when you ran into the Native Americans, the chief was played by a Jewish man speaking Yiddish.
Yeah.
Could you do that today?
No,
Could you get away with that kind of humor?
No, and yeah, and could you get away with the kind of jokes that they make in Men in Tights, for instance, or like the chastity belt joke? There's a lot of things that you can't make fun of anymore. Perfect example. You could not make Hot Shots 3 right now where they would take on ISIS. Because I think that actually, and I don't know if this is true, but after 9/11, it almost seemed like you guys became afraid of not necessarily making fun of people, but Hollywood got scared of bringing up things that were really touchy for people, and not just Muslims, but also for people within the U.S. They didn't, yeah,
Well, I don't understand that with comedy. You know, there's certain things, and I think a lot of people don't realize how much money is international money now. So people will be like, hey, why don't you have X as a main character? Well, the reason is because we can't get that film aired in China and we'll lose out on $100 million.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
you
and
know,
yeah,
and
market sensibilities. Yeah, I get that. I totally get that. But a spoof movie, really? It's they are supposed to, step over the
offend.
gray line. Yeah, they're supposed to offend. They're supposed to.
And,
Yeah, go ahead.
and I wonder if it goes back to what we've talked about several times. It's just overproduction, spending too much money on a film.
Yeah, it's
You
spending
know,
too much money, and they could easily make fun of the fact, kind of like Deadpool making fun of the budget in the movie if they didn't get the money that they needed to make it properly. There are so many ways that you can spin it, especially when there is a sort of a parody aspect to it. Yeah, I realize
well,
Jan's perpetually trying to apply logic to things. Yes, I should really start. Jan tries to throw logic at things, sort of small videos, so I can get my rants out.
it won't work. It won't work because your comments will just be us telling you about what you've recently said about the Polish, and
Yeah, come on,
just get
man.
dark. It's too dark.
Yeah,
No,
and
but yeah, you
and
could.
Angela makes a good point as well. The lines of what a spoof movie is now is so blurred. Google lists movies like Shaun of the Dead, Shrek, and Galaxy Quest as parody movies, spoof parody movies. I would agree
No,
that
Shaun of the
Galaxy,
Dead.
yeah, Shaun of the Dead is not necessarily a parody movie either. I mean, it's a homage and a pastiche. I agree
Well, it's like
that
Scream.
yeah, and and the same thing with Galaxy Quest. That is not a parody movie necessarily either, and that's why I'm sort of on in limbo when it comes to Austin Powers. I'm not sure if it's a parody movie or if it is a actually, or if it's even a spoof movie.
Well, I'd call it a parody. It's just a genre parody. I mean, it's its own film. It's its own idea, which is the best kind of parody. It tells its own story. Like I'd even call Galaxy Quest. You could call it a parody too, but it tells its own story. It has its own
Yes.
characters, you know, and that makes it 1,000 times better than you just throwing Captain Kirk references at my face for an hour and a half.
Yeah, we have thousands of hours of nerd comedy to do that. So yeah, there's
Nerd
no
comedy.
There's no need. Yeah, Artemis agrees with it that Austin Powers is a parody. Yeah, I really do agree. It's not a parody as you would define a parody, sort of rigidly, but it is definitely, in my opinion, it is a parody movie. It's not making fun of specific scenes as we remember from Hot Shots or Hot Shot or um yeah, different other movies. But I think that parody and spoof is is a really wide genre to go after, to sort of.
Well, like I said, I think all the best ones tell their own story.
Yeah.
You know, it's like if we wanted to make fun of the original film, we could go back and just watch it with some friends and drink and make fun of it beat for beat. Now you tell me a new story with either a straight man character or a goofy character, and either the world's insane or he is, then you start to play with things and you play with the tropes and, you tell us jokes.
Yeah.
Jokes.
Yeah, and
Remember
jokes
those, Hollywood?
Yeah, please, just and a bit of originality, maybe, and originality when we're discussing parody movies. Yeah, but it's the.
But that's a good point. Why can't a parody have some form of originality to it?
Yes.
Why can't you have the option to break the series tropes and to make light of them. You have that freedom where a genre movie might not be able to get away with it because the idea would be a little too silly.
Yeah, it's the it is it's a very weird genre, really, and I I lost my train of thought again. God damn it! Today, my face has been baked in the sun.
Well, it's like I want to go to, and there's another thing. Let's get back on a fence again. I don't mind being offended by a comedian. Some of my favorite jokes are at my religion's expense.
Yeah.
Because they're jokes. It's not somebody coming up and insulting me. It's somebody telling me a joke.
Yeah.
I don't have to take offense at it.
No, and it's not necessarily. I mean, there are a lot of things that you can parody when it comes to, especially when it comes to Hollywood right now, and that's why I sort of think that Deadpool is kind of a parody of superhero movies and a kind of a parody of the oversensitive, politically correct environment that movies are made in right now, because you can't
what isn't Deadpool an in-universe parody character?
Yeah,
it's like
he is a giant parody.
Sith.
Yeah, he's a giant parody in himself.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, I think that we probably should come up with some recommendations for great spoofs or parodies.
Well, Angela already got us kicked off with Repossessed. Let's throw that back out there. That is a good one. If you haven't seen Tucker and Dale versus Evil, I highly recommend that. What about any other genres? Horror genre gets parodied fairly regularly and well.
I wanna throw one out there that I don't think gets enough parody attention out at all, and that is one of my favorite parody movies is Clue, the Tim. Oh God, what's his name? Oh, now I feel
Tim Curry.
Yeah, Tim Curry. God damn it, my brain today. Tim Curry is probably one of my favorite comedy actors. I don't think that he necessarily got the cred that he deserved as a comedy actor. And Clue is probably one of the greatest parodies of, the typical TV production of a crime novel, like Agatha Christie, who wrote Hercule Poirot and Miss Marple. Miss
Well, have
Marple.
you ever seen Murder by Death?
Yeah, Murder by Death is also a very good good version. Are you guys gonna talk about porn parodies? Some of them are actually
Well,
quite good.
We're not going to talk about them, Jan.
No, but
What about and I think you mentioned it before when we were offline. Uh, Top Secret.
Yeah, Top Secret is also a very good and forgotten parody movie. It's that is also one of my. I just love that kind of parody movies, that kind of parody movie, as well, because they make fun of the typical World War II type of scenario with resistance versus the Germans, but they place it in East Germany instead, which is hilarious, and it's filled with hilarity. It's oh yeah.
And they have an absolutely amazing scene in it, filmed entirely backwards or played entirely backwards. I don't know which way they did it, but it's incredible.
Yeah. And they're yeah, it's a glorious movie. I really I wish we could go back to that type of parodies instead of just reproducing the same scene. I mean, reproducing big movie scenes just by making fun of them. I wish we could go back to that. So, you got any more recommendations? Because
No,
I got,
no,
I got, I got,
what,
I got one more,
go for it.
and that is a movie made by a good friend of mine called Kill Buljo, which is a Norwegian parody movie, but you can get it with English subtitles. There are some jokes that get lost in translation, but it's really fucking funny. It is a parody of the Kill Bill movies, and the director for that went on to make Dead Snow and Hansel and Gretel as well. So that is a fun way of looking at how you can make parody movies for almost nothing.
All right. Well, I think that kind of wraps it up for today. Thank y'all for tuning in to the Tagline podcast with Jan, the Meerkat Monarch, and myself, Gene, the Angry Penguin. You can find Jan on Fridays at the Unsolicited Opinion podcast with him and the usual crew. I can't talk. Yeah, usually a little smoother exit than that, but y'all have a good one.
Yes, and I won't be on the Unsolicited Opinions podcast next Friday, but the podcast will probably still run, even though I'm not there. So,
Uh,
yes.
the illustrious High Commander Dr. Evil is going to be taking your place, is my
Yes,
understanding.
yes. But it's gonna be a good show next Friday as well. And we will be back on next Sunday, and hopefully I will be back to my home in time for that. So, you guys have a
Oh, that's
great
good.
time, and next week we will be discussing. Have we decided? We haven't.
No, we hadn't. So I was kind of curious. You had me on the edge of my seat too. Uh,
Okay, we will release the topic during the coming days. Uh, bye, everybody.
bye.